I've been attempting to encapsulate my feelings on the Sargon Patreon deplatforming saga with all my might. But try as I may, something was just stopping me. I'd hit record, I'd settle in, I'd get on a roll, and then I'd just stop. Hell, I'm standing right now because it wasn't working sitting down. And for the life of me, I couldn't feature why. It was subject matter I felt passionately about, yet for some reason, approaching it like a traditional rant felt wrong somehow. And I think it's because brooding at the back of my mind isn't the traditional comedic bemusement I feel as I itemize the media miscellany I traditionally analyze here. And try as I may, I couldn't summon an adequate descriptor of the exact sensation either. And then the word hit me. Dread. Not because yet another pillar of alternative media has been yanked out by the roots, because Christ knows that's a bi-weekly occurrence at this juncture. I can scarcely log into Twitter these days, and I'm sure you're much the same, without half your follow list being shipped off to the goodthink Google gulag. It's more than that. It's a lot more. And I want to momentarily shelve the character and speak to you in all sincerity. The prevailing sensation of dread was hard enough for me to pin down, but the cause was even more elusive. I spent the better part of a day asking myself why until I considered my own situation and, let's be honest, my own inevitable excommunication from a public space that is transparently in the process of purging itself of iconoclastic voices. The justifications are myriad, from shacking up with a European nationalist coalition that, what was it they said about Lawrence Southern? They blocked refugees from entering Italy in a boat. To now a Sargon saying naughty words on a live stream. The result, however, you notice, is invariable. And if there's any ethos I live by, it's to disregard words and pay painfully close attention to actions. Because upon putting those under the microscope, there's no more mystery to this phenomenon than the rising of the sun or water rolling downhill. Call it whatever you like, censorship, deplatforming, the nomenclature is utterly extraneous. And while many on the right embrace evidence, both real and imagined, of a vast conspiracy in social media, and may even have some credible evidence to support such, I'd humbly ask that you consider an alternative hypothesis. There's no conspiracy at all. What you're witnessing is, rather ironically, the very same in-group preference the left decry in nationalists of all stripes, both white and otherwise. It's programmed into the totality of our being, baked in by thousands of years of evolution, as inexorable and inescapable as mankind's tendency toward organization in the absence of order. The morbid truth here is simple. There's no conspiracy, because they don't need a conspiracy. What you are witnessing at present are a cloistered cabal of tech elites operating out of a self-preservation instinct so human, so primal, their every attempt to rationalize their censorious actions, no matter how much mental twister may be required to justify the means, is automatically ratified by a satisfactory result. And it's in those arcane primordial realities, the hard programming coded into our every action, that gives rise to my dread to begin with. And I want you guys to hear me here. Because people like Sargon, in short, shall we say, the shitlordily inclined, are more than mere political pundits. They're panacea. Panacea for those who see a looming cultural catastrophe in progress. Discontinue that discourse. Shut down even the beginnings of meritorious discussion. It's not a threat, it's not a plan. I actively pray it doesn't occur, but history is clear as crystal on this subject. That is when the fists start flying. And turn your gaze to Charlottesville or those Portland rallies with the Proud Boys for ready confirmation that we're already perilously close to precisely that. Every abusive relationship in our cratering culture has as its centerpiece two parties committed to the principle of not listening to each other. And in the most extreme of those cases, what is the end result if not needless violence? And before anyone counters with, look, it's just the internet, it's just YouTube, it's just PayPal, I would agree, and wholeheartedly, but for the fact that we're witnessing so much of this memory hole housekeeping and deplatforming in the physical space we inhabit as well. From beloved entertainers like Razör to media figures, philosophers, and even athletes, what sphere of our socio-political existence is no longer implicitly policed? And how far afield from mere policing have we since allowed them to wander? Beyond the inherent danger of failing to recognize the public's need to vent the mounting communal frustration with a system spiraling in freefall, of the exact type Sargon of Akkad speaks to so eloquently. Well, that aberrant energy has to go somewhere. It's why the Romans fed Christian kebabs to the gladiatorial lions. Even negative energy requires expression, which brings me back to my aforementioned dread. I was on Twitter the other day, and I saw Stefan Molyneux encapsulate this phenomenon perfectly. He said, and I quote, "History is clear on this. When conversations end, battles begin." Is there a more pure distillation of this principle than the current conflagration in France, where issues of national import were long since settled through censorship, and a one-party tyranny of homogeny decreed decades ago that the choices are left and further left? Discussion was taken off the table there eons ago. Watch the TV. Consider the results. But here's where the dread for me truly sets in. Because whether it's Lauren Southern, James Alsop, Milo, Gavin McGinnis, or now Sargon of Akkad, Patreon, Facebook, Twitter, Google, and the social sphere in its entirety can shrug shoulder in unison and feign objectivity with all their might. The prevailing message is loud and clear. Discussion over. Godspeed.